Hello, I want to talk about masking tape. Growing up, for every single birthday, I could count on getting rolls and rolls of masking tape. And although this might seem like not the usual gift to give your child on a birthday or for Christmas, for me it was perfect because this was exactly what I was looking for. Because I knew that after I raided my parents' recycling bin, with enough masking tape, I could create everything from small animals to cars, trucks, planes, boats, anything I could imagine, I could probably make with enough masking tape. And looking back, this is an example of how my parents had supported me in this creative process. Because I was so supported and I was able to do a little bit of everything, I was interested in a little bit of everything. And this presented kind of a challenge when I started undergrad. So creative field was an obvious choice, but I didn't want to limit myself to just architecture, design, art. I wanted to do a little bit of everything. And I was actually an undecided major up until freshman orientation, when they just assumed I was there for a new program that they called comprehensive design. And when they explained what that program was all about, I realized it was actually perfect for me because it was a little bit of everything. It was trying to be comprehensive. It was a little bit of architecture, a little bit of industrial design, a little bit of product design, a little bit of graphic design. And I was able to add minors in psychology on top of that, just to learn more about the people we were supposed to be designing for. In that program, we were able to do a lot of projects. The idea was to learn this design process that we could theoretically apply to any project or problem. We would start by researching to try to understand the project, then we'd go into ideation, where we'd come up with potential solutions. And then we would test to make sure our potential solution was working the way we thought it was going to work. And through this process, I was able to learn 3D modeling, 3D printing, a lot of different technologies. But when I left undergrad, even though I had a strong background in design at that point, I wanted a little bit more. I wanted to not just include people for whom the design process had been really made for. I wanted to include more people who had been historically left out of that process. So I wanted to do design plus equity. And someone told me that because you benefit from the system, you have a responsibility to dismantle it. And looking back, I had definitely benefited from this system where even though I thought I was lucky, been at the right place at the right time, I was actually feeling the somewhat hidden effects of a system that was designed for me to succeed. But what still sticks out to me about this quote is the dismantling. Even though I agree that the system needs to be replaced, and we need something that's more equitable, it works for more people, I didn't actually want to dismantle. I wanted to rebuild because I'd been using masking tape for my entire life at that point. I wanted to bring things together and bring different perspectives. During my master's here at UC, I was given the opportunity to work with the Clovernook Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. I made the connection with them through a class where they were talking about a new initiative that they called the Tactile Storybook Initiative. And this was where they worked with partner schools to take local stories. They were partner schools for the blind in a few different African countries. They'd take local stories and they'd make picture books, essentially, where on one side you'd have a picture and text, and then there'd be a Braille insert. So you could read if you were a sighted child, and you could read along at the same time if you were visually impaired. And this would work for different students working together, a parent and child, or student and teacher. But they wanted to take this a little bit further. They wanted to add a tactile element. So they had been going through the books, finding some characters, and then 3D printing little versions of those. And as they explained that to me, I knew, given my background in 3D printing, 3D modeling, that I really wanted to be a part of it. So I immediately, the first day I met them, asked them if I could help. And fortunately, they said yes. And given their experience with the program, they were hoping that they'd be able to get like 1 to 2 books worth of 3D printed characters. But through working with them, I was able to do a little bit more than that. I wanted to work on the whole system, taking some of that design knowledge and the new research skills I was learning here from UC. So we were able to actually produce over 30 individual models, different characters to go along with these books. Not only that, but we had a completely new testing protocol where we'd go through the books, we'd identify characters, we'd find them online, or we'd model them ourselves, and then we'd 3D print them, we'd bring them to Clovernook, and part of what I was excited to do at Clovernook was actually test them with visually impaired individuals who worked there. And we were able to do this thing where we'd bring it to them, we'd ask them questions to see if they could identify that 3D printed character, and then we'd take it away, we'd read them the book, because at that point we hadn't actually produced any of the storybooks yet. But we'd read them the story, we'd give them back the 3D printed model, and we'd ask them if they could identify it again, just to make sure it was working. And during this whole process, we'd also ask them if we're asking the right questions, to make sure we were not only doing the right thing, but asking the right thing. One story in particular, too far, stands out to me. It's a competition between a chicken and a millipede. They're playing a game of soccer, or some people may call it football. And because it was so clearly based on these two characters, we had 3D printed a chicken and we had 3D printed a millipede. And I want to focus particularly on the chicken. Because when we brought this to that visually impaired individual at Clovernook, and as soon as we gave it to him, he picked it up and said, "Oh, it's a chicken." And that, in that moment, not just validated that this particular model worked for this book, but it validated our entire process of identifying the characters, producing the models, bringing the models to them, and then validating through this iterative process to make sure that it worked. And to me, this stands out because I think as we design for the future of our cities, the future of product design, we need to really include the people who matter the most. Not just the people who have always been included, but we can't forget about the people who have been not included. Because at this point, we're facing so many different issues that we can't afford to ignore their experience, their expertise, their perspective and background. Thank you.